Simona in Italy, King Louis in Leicestershire, not Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, and Norman in Canada. David, I thought, who's that? I'm in I don't know where.
So in Canada.
In Canada, marvelous. Well, without further ado, David Heathfield. It's a special evening because David Heathfield is going to tell not stories for children from Gaza, but from children from Gaza. Stories learned from children from Gaza. So, so I unfortunately have to disappear because I'm also supposed to be working on a workshop downstairs, and there's a big tagine down there, couscous and so forth, which we're having because it's the last day of the workshops, the week workshops. So I'm sitting in Marrakesh and in the World Storytelling Cafe. But what we got coming up, well, on Tuesday at 4 o'clock UK time and Irish time, we have our young international storytellers. So if anyone knows of any young tellers, just put them on and get them to join us in the usual way. Then on Friday the 10th, that will be. Is it the 10th or the 8th or something? No, Friday the 8th. Friday the 8th, I'm sitting here without a diary in front of me and I'm mathematically challenged. Friday the 8th, Deborah Weller will be Mrs. Claus to set us off on our seasonal journey. And then on Sunday the 10th, we have our December worldwide story round, of course, and that's 6 o'clock in the evening. And you are all invited to come along and tell a story. And that'll be hosted by Mike from Get a Word in Edgeways. And but for now, I'm going to hand over to David and go downstairs, and eat my lunch and tell stories. So you can probably hear the mayhem in the background. Bye-bye, everyone.
Have John, just before you go, can I just tell you something? And I just want to acknowledge something. Young International Storytellers is behind what we're doing this evening. And all of these photographs that you can see over my shoulder behind me are photographs which I've taken as screenshots from Young International Storyteller broadcasts over the last 3 years that you at the World Storytelling Cafe have made possible. These are all children in Gaza who over the last 3 years have told their stories to all of us around the world. And it's thanks to the World Storytelling Cafe and you, John, and Baba C, and for all of us who've supported that this is about this evening. So thanks very much, John.
Thank you. And I apologize that I will not be able to see things live, but I am incredibly multi-talented, but obviously, but the ability to clone myself when everyone is watching is beyond my capabilities. Well, I'm working on it.
The beautiful thing is this recording will be around for a long time.
Ever. No, I'm a mere apprentice, Jim. I can't. So have a great night, everybody, all day or whatever it is in the part of the world you are. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, John. And thank you for being here with me in the Zoom room, on Facebook, whether you're live with us, whether you're watching, whenever you're watching. This evening, I'm retelling stories that I've learned from young people, from children and teenagers in Gaza over the last few years through the World Storytelling Cafe. And, well, I've got a candle lit as well. Let's begin. There was a girl called Sheraz, and her teacher, Sahar, I got to know Sahar. She did a storytelling course with me, and Sahar brought some of her students along to teach me stories. And then they came to the World Storytelling Cafe. And one of her students is Sheraz. And I'm going to begin with the beginning of Sheraz's story. And the end of this sharing of stories will come to the end with the same story from Sheraz, because Sheraz's story is going to be the frame story for this evening. So without further ado, let me ask you to unmute. And when I say story, Louis and everybody, you can say, tell us the story. And I know that you're with me wherever you are. Story.
Tell us a story.
That's the way. There was an apple tree, a beautiful apple tree. And under that young apple tree, a mother put her child, her baby, to take the shade. And the tree looked down and its leaves danced in the wind. And the tree loved that baby. And the baby looked up at the tree and the baby gurgled and laughed with joy because the baby loved the tree. And the tree asked the baby, "What can I give you?" And he knew the baby's answer because the baby was saying, "Give me shade and playful leaves to rest under." Well, time passed. And the story will continue soon. But before I do tell the next part of the story, let me share with you a story that I learned from Zaina. And Zaina told me this story, and I'll never forget it. So this is for you, Zaina, and all of you. There was once a little flower growing in a remote garden. But the little flower was wilting. The little flower couldn't bloom. She was still young, but she couldn't bloom. Why not? There was no rain. And a small cloud, a faithful cloud, drifted over the garden. And the small cloud saw the drooping young flower and said, "Why are you sad?" And the little flower said, "I have no water. I need rain." But the little cloud didn't have any rain. She was too small. So the little faithful cloud sadly floated away beyond the garden towards the mountains. And on over the mountain, the faithful cloud was carried. And the faithful cloud came to some huge, dark clouds, heavy clouds who ached with water. "Oh, we are heavy, and we want to let our water fall." I know," said the faithful cloud, "where you can let your rain fall. There is a garden on the other side of the mountains, and if you rain on that garden, there is a little flower, and the little flower will grow and bloom." "We will help," said the heavy clouds, "but we need wind." And the faithful little cloud floated on until she came to the wind. "What do you want?" said the wind. And the faithful cloud said, "I need the wind to help to blow the heavy clouds to the other side of the mountain, so they can fall and water the garden where the little flower that's drooping can grow." "I will help," said the wind. And the wind began to blow, and this is where I need everybody's help. Can you help me? The wind blew and blew and blew, and the wind blew those heavy dark clouds towards the mountain. Oh, but you know what happened. When those heavy clouds reached the mountain, the clouds knocked against the mountain, and The rain began to fall. The clouds burst and there was a storm. All the water flooded down the sides of the mountain in great torrents. High streams flowed. The streams went some distance, but the land was dry, and the streams didn't reach the garden, and the little flower was wilting. The small cloud floated on and saw that the little flower was, so sorry. What could the little flower do? What could the little cloud do? The faithful cloud floated on, but there was a small bird saying, "Why are you so sad?" And the faithful cloud told her story. And the little bird said, "Oh, I will help." And the small, bright-coloured bird flew, 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 beating her wings. She flew all the way back towards the mountain. It was far for such a small bird. And she saw the streams that were flowing in torrents. And she dipped down, dipping her wings and her beak into the water, and she took a beakful of that water. And then she flew and she flew and she flew all the way to the garden and found the drooping flower. And the good little bird dropped the water from her beak around the base of the flower. And the little flower drank. It wasn't quite enough, so the bird flew, and you can join me, flew and flew, beating her wings. She flew and flew and flew all the way back to the stream that ran down the mountainside, and she gathered the water in her little beak, and then back towards the garden. She flew, she flew, she flew, and brought a little bit more water that she dropped around the base of the flower. But the little bird didn't stop. The bird used all her power and all her strength and flew back and fore and back and fore and back and fore, bringing more and more water for the little flower to drink. And now the little flower bloomed, and around the little flower many more little flowers grew. And soon she was surrounded by friends, bright-coloured flowers that swayed in the wind. And when the faithful cloud returned, she was glad. And the little flower said, "It's because of you. It's because of you, faithful cloud. It's because of the heavy clouds beyond the mountain, because of the help of the wind, of the mountain itself, because of that little bird. All of you together have helped me to live. Helped me to grow." This is the story of the faithful cloud, a story I learned from Zaina in Gaza. Oh, thank you, Zaina. I love telling this story. Can you say after me? Time passed.
Time passed.
The baby had become a young child, a little boy, and the little boy ran and played in the garden, and the tree often saw the little boy, and the apple tree loved that little boy, and the little boy loved the apple tree. And the apple tree asked the little boy, "What can I give you?" Can you ask? What can I give you? And the little boy said, "Oh, could I have an apple? One of your apples?" "Yes," said the tree, "climb into my branches. You won't fall." And the little child bravely climbed into the branches and plucked and held a sweet apple. And the young child ate the apple, and it was so sweet and good. How the little child loved the apple tree. How the apple tree loved the child. Time passed. And let me tell you a story that I learned from Muhammad. Most of the children I have met and learned stories from Gaza have been girls. It's mostly girls that have come, mainly maybe partly because of their teachers. The teachers that I've got to know have been women. But Mohammed was one of the boys. And Mohammed told me this story, a story that I loved so much that I've told it many times since I learned it from him. Story?
Tell me a story.
That's a story.
Yes, thank you. Here's a story for everyone. A story for you as well, Louis. A boy came to his father, and the boy said, "Father, tell me, what's the value of life?" "The value of life," said his father. And the father looked at the boy and thought, it is time for him to learn. "The value of life, my son, I will show you." And he gave his son a rock. And his son took the rock. "What do I do with this, father?" "Take the rock, go to the market and sell it." "Well, don't sell it. See how much people will offer for it. Don't say anything. And when someone asks what the price is, show them your 2 fingers like this. And they will give you a price, but don't sell it to them. Just come back and tell me what they say." Well, the boy didn't understand, but he trusted his father. He was a good boy, so he ran off to the market. And when he reached the market, he came to a stall, and a breeze was blowing, and there was a woman selling her vegetables and fruit on the stall, but the cloth that she had underneath the fruit and vegetables was blowing in the wind. And he held the rock, and she said, "That rock? How much do you want for that rock?" And he showed his 2 fingers, and she said, 2 lira. "I'll buy it from you." But the boy remembered what his father had said, and he didn't sell it to the woman in the market. He just ran back home. And he told his father, "The woman in the market offered me 2 lira so that she could weigh down her cloth." "Ah," said the father. "Now take the same rock and go to the merchant, you know, the most successful merchant in the town. Go to the merchant and see what he will offer, but don't say anything, just hold up 2 fingers. Well, the boy did what his father told him to do. He trusted his father, and he swiftly ran all the way to the merchant's house. And the merchant brought him inside. "That's an interesting rock you've got there." The merchant was curious. "How much do you want for that?" And the boy held up 2 fingers. 200 lira. "I'm willing to give you 200 lira." And the boy was tempted to sell it, but remembered what his father had said, shook his head and left, ran all the way home and said, "Father, father, oh, the merchant offered me 200 lira for the same rock." "Yes. My son, now go to the city, all the way to the city, and there in the city go to the best jeweler, the famous jeweler, the jeweler that's known across the land, that sells the most valuable jewels of all, and do the same thing. When he asks you what you want for the rock, just show 2 fingers, but don't sell it." Well, the boy ran and ran and ran, and it was a long way to the city, and he found that famous jewellery stall, and finally he was let in, but the jeweller was suspicious until he unwrapped that rock and showed it, and the jeweller took the rock and examined it and weighed it, and "Oh, I see. How much are you asking for this?" The boy held up 2 fingers. 2 million lira. "If I break open this rock, it is likely that I will find jewels that have a value in excess of 2 million lira. So, yes, I agree. I will buy it from you." Oh, how that child was tempted. Can you imagine? 2 million lira. Would you sell it there and then? Would you? Some of you are nodding. I'm surprised. You must know that the boy was an honest boy and trusted his father. You wouldn't sell it, would you, Louis? No, of course you wouldn't. The boy took the rock and ran out of the jeweller's, to the amazement of the rich and important jeweller, and ran all the way back from the city to the town and all the way home to his father. Father, he offered 2 million lira for that same rock. And his father took the rock from him and looked at his son and said, my boy, let me explain about the value of life. That same rock you presented to the woman in the market stall, to the rich merchant, and to the very famous jeweller, and each of them offered a different price. The value of life depends on you, the way you present yourself, the people who you surround yourself with, people who esteem you and value you for who you are. My son, always remember that inside you there is a precious jewel. But more important, my son, always remember that inside every human being there is a precious jewel. Value the jewel in everyone you meet. And in this way you may learn the value of life. Mohammed, thank you for that story. The value of life. Are you ready, everybody? What do we say? Time passed.
Time passed.
And that boy became older. The tree hadn't seen the boy for a long time. The tree stood there, apples growing ripe and juicy on the branches. And there was an older boy. And the older boy looked up at the tree, and the tree looked at the older boy, and the tree loved the older boy, and asked the question, do you remember? What can I give you? I need money. I want to buy a lot of toys. Many toys. Well, said the tree, climb and pluck my apples. Take some of my apples and go to the market, sell the apples, and then you'll have some money to buy toys. The older boy climbed into the tree, plucked an apple, plucked another apple, plucked a third apple, and another 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 apple, until the boy had plucked all of the apples on the tree. And the boy carried them away to the market and sold all of the apples for plenty of money and bought lots and lots of toys. Time passed. Let me now tell you a story that I learned from Janat. Janat's teacher is Ruba. It's great to hear from you a couple of days ago, Ruba, in Gaza. Wishing you well. Wishing all of the children I learned stories from well. I hope you're safe. We all hope you're safe. So, Janat told me a story about a young man and his wife. Story. Perhaps you know this story.
Tell us a story.
Tell us a story.
Thank you. Well, there was a young man and his wife, and they had a goose. And one day, to their amazement, you know what happened. That goose laid an egg that was made of pure gold. A golden egg. Oh, a golden egg. Wife, we're no longer poor. We're going to be rich. And they sold the golden egg and they had plenty of money and they bought the most wonderful food and they ate better than they'd ever eaten before. And the next day, to their delight, the goose laid another golden egg. Oh, wonderful. And they took that golden egg or they bought new clothes, and the next day there was a golden egg and they were doing up their house, and every day there was another golden egg, and they started to hoard some of the eggs because, we will become richer. We can hoard our eggs. We will do well. Make sure no one else knows about it, though. You know what people are like. And they got more and more golden eggs. But only one egg a day, said the husband. Only one. I mean, that goose must have so many golden eggs inside it. But it only lets us have one egg at a time. Imagine how wealthy we could be with all of the golden eggs inside the goose. Wife, you know what I'm going to do. And before she could stop him, he had slaughtered the goose, cut the goose open. And how many golden eggs did he find? Not a single one. Oh, what have I done? Soon the golden eggs that they had saved had been sold, the money spent wastefully. They had been rich once, but now they were losing everything. They became poorer and poorer and poorer, and ended up with no home at all. When Janat told me this story, she said two things. She said, much wants more, but loses all. And greed is a curse. A wise young woman, Janat, wouldn't you agree? Thank you. Everybody, are you ready? Time passed. One day, to the apple tree, a young man came. It was many years since the tree had seen him, but the tree knew him. And the tree loved the young man, and the young man examined the tree. And the tree asked, "What can I give you?" And the young man said, "I have grown up. I'm starting work. I'm getting married. I'll soon have a family. I need a house. I need wood." Well, the tree loved the young man. "Take some of my wood. Cut off some of my branches. Build yourself a house." And the young man went off and he returned with a saw. And he climbed into the tree and he sawed off a branch. He sawed and he dropped the branch onto the ground. And then he sawed off another branch and dropped it onto the ground. You can say it with me. He sawed off another branch, dropped it onto the ground, and another branch, and another branch, and another branch, and another branch. And you know what? Soon he had sawn off all of the branches, and there was just the apple tree trunk. And the young man returned and carried the branches away and built himself a house. And there stood the apple tree trunk. Time passed.
Time passed.
Malak, thank you for the story I'm about to tell. Malak's teacher, Sahar. Oh, wonderful, wonderful stories that your students told and still tell. Malak told us, so that we could learn it, the story of the wise Shah, the wise ruler. Do you want to hear it? Story?
Tell us a
Tell us a
story.
Tell us the story.
Have you ever heard of Alexander the Great? A powerful figure from history. Alexander the Great conquered many lands, plundered and took all of the gold. Alexander the Great came to one land that was unlike any other. It was a land that was ruled wisely by a generous Shah. Everything was shared. There was peace and harmony and equality, justice in the land. Alexander the Great didn't understand. He was invited to the palace of the Shah, sat down and was presented with a plate of what looked like fruit and nuts. It shone. But when he reached and took a piece of fruit, he found when he was about to bite into it that the fruit was made of solid gold. "What's the meaning of this?" said Alexander, and the Shah smiled. "Oh, I heard that that's what you enjoyed consuming." Alexander the Great was confused. At that moment, into the great chamber stepped two countrymen. They had a dispute and wanted to ask for the Shah's advice. The Shah said to Alexander, "Perhaps you can help me. What advice would you give to these two petitioners?" And the two countrymen stood there and they started to argue. One of them was holding a casket, and he said, "In this casket," and he opened it, "it's full of gold. I dug up this casket, but the land that I dug it from is not really my land, it's his. And so this casket of gold belongs to him." And the other one said, no, it's his, it's yours. I gave you the land, remember, my friend. I had more than enough, so I gave some to you, and you dug up that casket from your land. It's yours. No, it's yours. The gold was already there when you were the owner. It's yours. And they were arguing, you should have it, you should have it. And Alexander the Great was so perplexed by their behavior. In the end, the wise Shah said, "Hush, quiet. Alexander, what would your advice be?" "Well, neither of them want the gold," said Alexander. "Take the gold and put it in your own coffers," he said to the wise Shah. "And if they complain, have them thrown into prison. That's what I would do." "Yes, you would," said the wise Shah. He turned to the two countrymen. "Do you have sons or daughters?" And he found out that one had a son of marriageable age and one had a daughter of marriageable age. And indeed, these two were friends. They liked each other well. "It is an easy solution," said the wise Shah, "that your son and your daughter should be married, and then the gold can be shared." The two countrymen embraced each other, thanked the wise Shah, and left. The wise Shah turned to Alexander the Great. "Doesn't the rain which falls fall on those that have plenty and those that have nothing? Doesn't the sun shine on everyone equally, however much they own? It seems to me that only an unjust man should have so many blessings." Thank you, Malak, for teaching us about justice and fairness. The story that Shiraz told, we're coming to the end, and some of you may have heard the story before, but whether you have or you haven't, I'll invite you to imagine your ending.
Time passed.
Thank you, Babasi. Time passed. It was many long years, and slowly that tree trunk had sprouted leaves, and new branches had grown, and the leaves twisted in the wind. And now there were branches, and the tree was healthy, and the apples grew. The tree was mature. One day, an older man came along. His hair was grey, and he looked up at the tree. "It's you," said the apple tree. And the apple tree loved the older man and asked, "What can I give you?" And the older man said, "I have no more work. My career is over. My family have left. I can enjoy my leisure. I have a dream to build a boat, a wonderful boat, a large boat, so I can sail across the sea and explore the world." "Take my wood," said the tree. And the older man went off, and when he returned, you know what he was carrying? Yes, an axe. And he swung the axe high and chop. Yes, let's do it. Chop and chop. And the tree began to creak and fall. And the tree crashed to the ground, leaving just a stump, an apple tree stump. And the older man came back with a saw, and he sawed up the wood and carried it away, and he built himself a great ship made of wood, and he sailed across the sea and enjoyed his leisure. And the apple tree couldn't grow. The apple tree was a simple stump. Time passed. But I ask you, is the story over? Not quite. You may have known different endings to this story. I'd love to share the ending that Shiraz told to me, to us. But before I do, if there's somebody in this room that doesn't know this story, perhaps you would like to guess. Imagine, there's no right or wrong answer, what happened at the end of the story. And if you do know what happened, or you think you know what happened, you can write it in the chat. So I'm going to ask somebody. I'm wondering, I know there's lots of children watching online, either now or in the future. Hello, people of the future. But the people who are here, you can write as well. You can write in the comments before you listen to the end. You could even pause it if you want to. What do you think will happen? What happened to the apple tree stump and the old man? I'm going to ask somebody. Who shall I ask? I'll ask Mechthild. What do you think? Do you know this story, Mechthild? Oh, I can't hear you. You must be having some audio. Oh, do you know this story, Simona? Oh, Simona knows it. Amna, do you know this story?
Yes, exactly.
I'm not sure about this.
Oh, what do you think is going to happen in the end, Amna?
The tree stump gets used as a chair or a stool.
Ah, a chair or a stool. That's an interesting idea. Do you like Amna's idea? If you like Amna's idea, give her a little wave. Yeah, that's a great idea. Mechthild, did you get your audio working? Oh, you can write in the chat. Absolutely. The tell is strong. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Oh, somebody's written, I think it must be my wife Tammy, even though it says my name on it. Perhaps a carpenter carved it into a beautiful seat. So she's got a similar idea to Amna. Oh, Norman. I think Norman might have heard this story before, but maybe you've got another ending. I'm wondering.
Yes, I would. I do. The tree had other visitors,
Ah, okay, okay.
and I used to come by every year and saw the tree in many forms. And one day it came and it saw that it was a stump, but there was apples, rotten apples, lying around, and it took one of the apples and went to plant the seeds in.
Ah, a new tree can grow, and not just one.
That's my ending.
Thank you so much. Can I tell you all the ending that Sheraz told to me? Story, story.
Tell us a story.
All
Tell
of the
us a story.
stories, all of the stories I've learned from children in Gaza have been stories of hope and wisdom and peace and love and joy. And this isn't an exception. There's a lot of wisdom in it. Say it with me. Time passed.
Time passed.
An old man came along leaning on a stick. There was no more hair on top of his head. His beard was long and white. Yes, we can look round the room. And the old man stood there near the tree stump and looked around. And the tree stump knew this old man. And the tree stump loved this old man. And the tree stump said, I can give you no apples. I have no apples. I can give you no branches. I can't give you the wood from my trunk. And the tree stump asked, what can I give you? And the old man looked at the tree stump. Oh, just give me somewhere to sit and listen to stories. The tree stump said, sit on me. And the old man sat on the tree stump and listened. And as the breeze blew, the old man heard all of the stories, not just the stories that have been told this evening, but stories from the apple tree's life, which reflected his own life. Stories of childhood, youth, middle age, and old age. And the old man loved the apple tree stump. And the apple tree stump loved the old man. Thank you, Sheraz. Thank you to all of the children in Gaza for sharing your stories with such generosity. May you share many, many more. Here beside me, I have a whole bunch of stories that I learned. I use this technique, I call it Story S, where I write a big S, and when a child tells me a story, I take notes. I learned the apple tree from Sheraz. She also called it the selfish boy. I learned the wise Shah from Malak. I learned much wants more but loses all from Janat. I learned the value of life from Muhammad. I learned the story of Ashab and the three friends from Tala. And I learned the stork Caliph from Hala. Yosafi I learned from Arij. The sleeve I learned from Hala. And from another Hala I learned the aspiration trap. From Gina I learned dignity is priceless. From Tala I learned the magical revenge. From Asil I learned Malek's story. From Farah I learned the fox's tale. From Maram and Malak I learned the gluttonous son. And those are just a few of the many stories I've learned from you, wonderful young storytellers from Gaza. and there are so many, many more of you. And I just want to ask if our dear friend Haneen would like to say something before we say goodbye. Something for the children who might be listening now or in the future.
Well, it's lovely to be here and see all those people listening to the children's stories from Gaza. When I am away myself from my children in Gaza, but I can feel the hope and the light in this room, and I can feel the support. Thank you very much, David, for sharing the children's stories. And I always say that the children, particularly in Gaza, there's something so special about them. I mean, their eyes are always shining with creativity and hope. And when the whole world is expecting them to step back and be weak, they are granting the world so much strength that we adults can't do that when we are facing horrible times. I mean, the situation there is very difficult at the moment, but we are praying and hoping that all of our children in Gaza, all the students we have taught and all the students I haven't taught, all the students I have met and all the students I haven't met, and every single child, mother and father and parent and teacher, man and woman, and every single person there, we hope that they are always safe, and they will be, and this will come to an end. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, David, again for sharing this. And it's so special to know that a lot of people out there care, and a lot of people are knowing much better about the creativity and the innocence and the love of peace and life for those children and teachers in Gaza. One of the most amazing projects that I have witnessed when David did that project, teach us a tale, that was great, because always the teachers teach and they kind of push and pull with the learners, but it was amazing that the children were able to be in power and teach David, that most amazing international storyteller that I have ever met, and learned from a tale. So that's really amazing to know that those stories are passed through generations and are heard and listened to by so many people who are supporting our cause in Palestine and particularly in Gaza. Thank you very much.
If children in Gaza aren't listening to the stories right now, I think you are listening to the stories when you listen to this recording. So can we all just open our microphones and wish love and light and peace and say thank you for the stories? Let's just say that together.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
story.
Stories, children in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the stories.
Thank you for the stories.
Thank you for the stories.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the stories.
Thank you for the stories.
Well, good night, everybody. And Waleed, when you're ready, you can end the meeting.
And
Thank
thank
you,
you,
David.
Ali, for once again flying the
everyone.
magic carpet. And thank you, David, for sharing the stories that the children shared with you.
I'm just going to suggest that everyone leaves the meeting now. Okay.
Okay,
Everyone have a
bye.
nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
To be continued.
Goodbye. Take care.